For this video, I want to talk about different watercolor strengths, different amounts of water, and how those different amounts of water and how you use your brush with your palette, with your paint, how all those things combine to create different effects. I have been requested by a few people to actually show my palette when I work, because for beginners especially, it's helpful to see not only what happens on the paper, but what happens on the palette, because they are both equally as significant as far as the outcome of what you get on the actual painting. So I'm going to show you a few different things and a few different techniques. One technique is wet and wet, and what I have is a very, very loaded, dripping wet brush, and I'm just going to put a bunch of water on this piece of paper, and this is very basic. My cat just bumped my tripod, so she wants attention. Anyway, so this is very wet. It's very puddly, okay? Very moist. So I did that. So now I'm going to loosen some of my paint here on my palette. And you can see I'm getting it pretty good and wet. It's almost like dropping the color into the puddle. See that? And you can get some nice smooth transitions with different colors by putting different colors in this very wet on wet wash, and even go up into I'm taking the blue up into the green, and that'll make a nice blue green, and this will be blue and this will be green. And so that's considered wet and wet. Okay, another way that you can work is wet on dry. So here's my palette. There's plenty of water in this paint here. I'd say it's about the consistency of tea, and I'm going to paint onto the dry. See, that creates a little bit more texture, but while that's still wet, what you can do is go in with another color again. I'm going to pick up some blue, and I'm going to just go along the edge of that, and that creates a nice little smooth disappearing edge there, but there you can still see the difference between the two colors. Now what you can do is go back in, and while it's still equally wet, just kind of scrub it all together. You can do that. Or you can keep the two colors very distinct. Another technique is dry on dry, and I'm going to use my my paper towel. I'm going to dab my brush dry, get the extra water out, and just get a little bit of, use a little bit of water and a lot of paint. So this is pretty thick, okay, onto the dry. And that's going to, look at the texture that creates. That's good for fur, landscape textures. You can also, let's do wet and wet again. This is going to be another option. I don't have quite all the paint out, but that's okay. I've got a nice puddle, and now I'm really going to get a ton of paint in my brush. Ton, okay? And I'm going to drop that in. And that can create some amazing effects. And I'm going to clean my brush out and then maybe drop in. Going to get a lot of red. Scrub, get a bunch of red paint on my medium wet brush and drop that in, and look how it actually, you can see the water move in reaction to me adding that paint. So there's all sorts of different combinations of how much water you put in your paint, and how much water you have on your paper, and how much water is on the palette. And I encourage you to just play around with it, get a feel. Normally you don't want to go back into paint that's medium wet like this, because it'll blossom, but maybe you do want a little slice of white in there, and you want a little bit of a blossom, or you want to spray some dots and get some texture. And you can do that, and as this dries, the paint will go away from where all the water is, and and it'll create a nice little textured look. Okay.